Welcome to Mindset Mentoring for Athletes, Families, and Entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Coach Chuck. And today we're diving into the storms of life, the times when stress, anxiety, and uncertainty can shake us to our core. But more importantly, we'll be learning about the tools that can help us reflect, recalibrate, and restore. My guest today has lived these lessons and teaches others how to thrive instead of just survive. So stay tuned for that.
Welcome to Success Institutes, where we turn potential into achievement. Are you ready to transform your mindset and unlock your true potential? We are experts at guiding teenagers, families, athletes, and entrepreneurs to break through limiting beliefs and release negative emotions, empowering them to adopt a champion's mindset. Do you feel like you have more potential to unlock, but something is holding you back from reaching it? Or do you feel that about your teenager, teen, or business? At Success Institutes, we understand these challenges. Our Mindset Transformation Training and 10-week Transformative Habits Integration Program are designed to help you overcome unconscious obstacles, foster a growth mindset, and build habits that allow you to become a master of your mindset and a master of your life. Our foundational programs offer practical tools and strategies to shift from a mindset of defeatism to one of unstoppable success. Imagine gaining clarity, confidence, and the habits needed to reach your goals and enhance your well-being. Whether you're an athlete striving to reach new heights, a student pushing for academic success, a parent balancing your teen's needs with your own challenges, or an entrepreneur looking to unlock your full potential and that of your team, we are ready to support you every step of the journey. Discover how our tailored programs can help you break barriers and build a future full of possibilities. Ready to take the first step towards transformation? Visit successinstitutes.co and schedule a discovery call with our team today to learn how you can shift your mindset, overcome challenges, and achieve your dreams. Success begins with the right mindset. Contact us now to start your journey to greatness.
Welcome back, and it's my honor to introduce today's guest, Earl Menchhofer. Earl is a speaker, coach, pastor, and the author of Stay in the Game, 7 Steps to Serenity. He's passionate about helping people turn a bad day into a fantastic day. And through his own life experiences, he shares courage, strength, and serenity with those crying out for hope, calmness, and joy. Solidly grounded in his faith, Earl offers a sincere, practical approach that inspires people to thrive in the face of adversity. Earl, welcome to the show.
Earl Menchhofer is a speaker, coach, pastor, and the author of Stay in the Game, 7 Steps to Serenity. With a passion for helping people turn a bad day into a fantastic one, Earl draws from his own life experiences to offer courage, strength, and serenity to those who need it most. His message is sincere, practical, and grounded in faith, meeting people where they are and guiding them toward hope, calmness, and joy. Earl believes adversity isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning of growth. Through his coaching, speaking, and writing, he equips others with tools to thrive in the face of life's challenges. Earl Menchhofer, sharing wisdom, building resilience, and inspiring people everywhere to stay in the game.
It's an honor to have you, and I usually begin at the beginning. So I always ask my guests to kind of introduce themselves to my audience and just give us a little bit of background before we really kind of get into the meat of the conversation.
Okay, very good. Yes, I am Earl Menchhofer. I am living in the Atlanta, Georgia area with my wife and what we call our 2 furry cats, our kids. We call Holly and Patches. And I am really passionate about empowering faith-driven professionals and entrepreneurs to flourish amid the life storms without compromising serenity. I really have a passion to help them to stand strong when things go wrong, because I do know in life, it's not all roses, there's thorns as well. And I believe sometimes we need encouragement to help us get through those tough times, to get back on the road to thriving again instead of surviving.
Well, that's a mission that you and I kind of share in common, right? And obviously, as the mindset mentor, I understand or talk a lot about the importance of mindset in dealing with those storms of life. Uh, Now, you've written a book, Stay in the Game, 7 Steps to Serenity. Can you give us a little bit of background into how that book came about? And then we can kind of delve into that a little bit.
The book came about because of one of my first life storms in terms of forced resignation and parish ministry. And after going through those storms, I realized I was getting back on track, back into serenity again by going through the 7 steps that I list in the book. And so I discovered in one of my quiet times with God, I said, "Thank God, you are bringing me through my life storms, and I am experiencing it through these different ways. Are you asking me to write a book to share with others so they don't have to go through it? They can get through quicker than I have gotten through." So that's basically why I started writing the book, realizing that I was experiencing things to get me through the serenity faster. I wanted to help others to do it as well.
You know, so many people, we all have storms, and I'm not one to talk about one storm necessarily being worse than another, but too many people, I feel, don't know how to go about getting up after those storms have knocked them down. And how often do we see movies too that talk about somebody or shows a main character who suffered a great loss, and they turn to the bottle, or they turn to the drugs, or they struggle with sexual challenges, or whatever it is. They reaching for something else to kind of fill that void. And the Apostle Paul talks about transform your life through the renewing of the mind.
Yeah.
And that seems to be our common message. So can you delve into a little bit more about what it is that you teach? I know it's the 3 R's, and we aren't talking about reading, writing, and arithmetic here. So
Right.
you want to kind of share, a little bit on those and how those helped you in your time.
Yes, be glad to. Basically, I agree with you. When a person has a life storm, I believe they can go either two directions. They can go, what I say, go up, or they can go down. When they choose to go down, they're using those activities that you listed. But if you really wanted to go up, I believe one way to, maybe not the only way, but I think one way to help them to go forward in a positive direction is what I refer to as the 3 R's. Basically, because when we have a life storm, the first R is reflect. Because if we're going to go any place forward, we need to know where we're starting from. And even though it may be a bad situation or an uncomfortable situation, we need to know where we are, reflecting where we are, and then reflecting. I made a decision, or more likely, I made a better way of saying it. I made a declaration, saying, "I do not know why this has happened to me, but I'm not going to let it defeat me. I'm going to go forward instead of backwards. I'm going to thrive instead of survive." And also, going forward, I claim the promise of God. When God says, "I'm in the middle of the storm, I'm going to hold on to you." And then in my prayer life, I told God, in the middle of the storm, "I'm going to hold on to you. I'm going to hold on to you." So by making that declaration and by holding into that promise of God, that helped me in my stage of reflecting, that I made a decision I wanted to go forward. Then the next when I come to the second R, the second step in the process is recalibrate, which is basically making an adjustment. Because if we don't make an adjustment, we're probably going to end up having the same thing happen to us. And so by making the adjustment, we can go. It helps us to go forward. In my book, that's where the 7 steps come in, because I believe the 7 steps are ways that one can recalibrate their life to go forward. And then the third R is restore. Restore or renew. That way we can, once we have reflected, recalibrated, therefore we're able to go forward to restoring our life with newness and wholeness and going forward. That's where the serenity and the thriving takes place in terms of restoring our life once again. So those, in a summary, that's what the 3 R's are. And I think for me, every time I go through a life storm, I'm going back to reflecting. I'm going back to thinking about the 3 R's.
I interviewed a number of people who've hit, well, sometimes I talk about rock bottom. I have a mentor myself who, in a lot of his public speaking, doesn't talk about rock bottom. He talks rock foundation, right? So whatever that foundation is that can hold us. But there's one question I ask often, and it's, what was it that, do you think, that decision that triggered the whole process? Reflection, that's actually something that seems pretty common with people who hit rock bottom. They begin to reflect. But why do some people, and talk about you specifically, decide, all right, something's got to change, right? Like I'm going to move forward, like you just said, while others go the other direction. Can you talk about that at all? Like, what is it, do you think, that's there that allows that to happen?
I think it's the determination. I think it's the determination. I think in terms of mindset or attitude. I like the example of an airplane. An airplane has a device instrument on it called an attitude indicator. And I made a decision. I wanted to go up in my life and fly instead of staying grounded or going lower. And so I believe it's very important for a person when it comes across a life storm of any type. I think it comes back to attitude or mindset. What direction do you want to go? And what are you really determined to go forward? And I believe, from a faith perspective, I believe it also is helpful. One cannot do it by themselves. I believe we need to claim the promises of God and ask God for God's help through the process. And by claiming the promises of God and asking for God's help, and also doing our part as well, I believe that's one way we can help us to continue to go forward, one small step at a time. And realizing we've got into a situation, to a life storm, not automatically. It's happened, and it's going to take us a while, maybe a little while. As I think of it, it's a marathon, not a sprint, to get back into serenity. So, but if we have the promises, if we claim the promises of God, and also have the attitude to go forward, I believe that helps us in going forward and making progress, one small step at a time.
Now, I think that, and this is where I think you and I may agree, and why I think mindset's so important, because it seems like people who somewhere along the lines had developed some beliefs about the value of life, about the importance of going forward. That's that rock foundation I think my mentors kind of talked about. When we hit the bottom, that's actually kind of kicks in. And other people who didn't have that, who grew up in a environment where everything was negative and no good and you're worthless and all that, that's not even there to kick in when things begin to really go bad. The Apostle Paul, what's he say? We celebrate our trials and tribulations because we know that these create perseverance. Perseverance builds character, and character
Right.
hope. And I think the most recent number is like 42% of teenagers today are reporting persistent feelings of hopelessness. And it seems to me that that's because they haven't been given some of these foundational beliefs about the value of life, about hope, about their own worth. Do you see that too? I mean, in the work you have as a minister or other people you're going out, do you think that is part of the issue? Is that they haven't been given this foundation to fall back on?
They may not have been given it, or they've forgotten it because of their life, because of their situation. I think it clouds their thinking. They're thinking small, narrow. I think there's a better terminology. They're thinking narrow instead of thinking, looking up and looking wide. Because if one is in any type of adversity or a storm, I think it's tendency, it's human nature to think, focusing on the immediate situation. And even though we may or may not have had a background of these things we're talking about, Chuck, I really believe sometimes we get so and laser focused on the situation that we forget anything else, and we forget about the needing to look up and trying to get to widen the lens of the picture. So I think it's a little bit of both. We may not have had that foundation, or if we did, we forget about it because we're so laser focused on the situation that it's our problem or our challenge.
Yeah, I think I tend to agree with that. I think that's sometimes why people need a coach, right? Is
Yeah.
they are stuck and it's oftentimes hard to get out of it on your own because it's kind of like you're stuck in the quicksand. All of a sudden
Yeah.
you came in in that case, you need somebody to help, pull you out. I had a former student and this was about 6 months after my wife had passed away, and she was dealing with loss of her brother to a drug overdose and her grandmother who had raised her. And there's a long history of alcohol and drug abuse and her family and depression. And she'd been able to avoid that like most of her life. But in that, this all happened to her December, a couple weeks before Christmas time. We had connected. She knew my wife had died. I had heard that her brother died and all. So we had some conversations, grieving processes and all. But she said that the foundation we helped her lay in middle school was what she fell back on. And a lot of what that was the belief in her own value and self-worth and that there's more out there. There's more good things out there. And having worked in public schools, I had no problem sharing my own faith, but it was also hard to talk more about that. But
Right.
that faith, we all have faith. We can't live without it. I argue all the time, you can't live without faith. The question is what are you putting that faith in, or who are you putting it in? And obviously that was a big part for you, and you said that there was three tools that really helped you recalibrate, and that's prayer, scripture, and trust in God. I'd like to have you kind of touch upon each of those, but especially this idea of trust, because we of faith often say that we've got to trust God. But the process, like, how do you do that? How, that's an act, right? So, how do you help somebody trust in God, who somebody they may not have a relationship with or understand? Can you speak to those things and how that helped you in kind of that whole process?
Yeah. Um, as I say in my book, it's the last chapter, or next to last chapter, in terms of skill, I mean, in terms of steps. And I say, I'm reading it here from the text. In the middle of your challenging situation, you may not sense God's presence. However, God is not far from you. It is the fear that makes you forget that an Almighty God is always in your presence. Now, hear me out. I know in the midst of your desperate situation, you probably find it hard to keep trusting God, especially if you find it hard to trust God in the first place. However, I encourage you to step back and look at the larger picture instead of only focus on your own situation. Step back and realize that God loves you and God knows your needs. And it may not seem possible, but realize that God is working in your situation right now. God wants you to thrive instead of survive. So basically, then in the book, I go on to share the poem Footprints. I think you may be familiar with it in terms of a person on the beach and walking with God, and only sees one such a footprint and says, God, I don't understand. I thought you said you'd be with me during my troubled times. And God says, yes, I was with you. I love you. It's in those hard times that I carried you. So I believe sometimes if persons find it hard to trust God, just try to realize, so first look at the bigger picture instead of the smaller picture, and then also try your best to realize that God is working in your life. You may not seem possible, but God is working in your life, and realizing God is carrying you when you're unable to carry it yourself. And for me, that was very, very helpful. Helped me through each of my life storms. Realizing that God is always with me. Sometimes I don't feel God's presence, but I go on faith, realizing that God is with me every step of the way. And also, another thing that helps me to keep trusting God is what my spiritual mentor or companion said and reminds me of. Each day, God says to everyone, I am with you, I love you, trust me. And basically, that has helped me out as well very, very much each and every time I have a life storm, to help me keep trusting God, realizing that God tells me every day, I am with you, I love you, please trust me. And whenever I have a moment, a question, wondering what's happening in my life or the adversity, I remember that mantra, and that helps me very, very much to keep going forward, to keep trusting God.
This is with the more people I interview, the more people I talk to who've overcome some, serious challenges, all different, whether it's been abuse or loss of loved ones or drugs and alcohol, whatever it is. It's so many of them come to that realization that there's someone greater than me who I can turn to, And in that moment of realization, as kind of this step of restoration, really. I mean, that's kind of what you talk about with restore. I think is that realization begins to be part of that healing process. Can you talk just a little bit more about what that meant to you, that the restoration part of that? And because to me, once you feel that, I mean, that's like a real game changer. That's like that final piece. Um, you want to share anything regarding that at all?
Yeah, you're right. It is a game changer. And for me, when I realized that it is, I'm realizing slowly but surely, I'm making progress step by step, and realizing that I am having assistance with God helping me. I really feel God is my friend and my partner, and so there, as well as my healer and deliverer. But every time I go forward, and I realizing that I'm making progress, and all of a sudden, it's like I come out. You might say I come out of a tunnel, and there's a whole white, bright light in front of me, and that's for me. That's when I realize I'm discovering or experiencing the fullness of God's love. And I'm also discovering and I'm really feeling my life really thriving once again, as well as I feel the sense of newness and wholeness and calmness and total inner serenity. I may not be totally through the situation, but I'm really feeling in myself, within me, a total serenity, and realizing, and then that turns into gratitude, realizing that I'm being led forward into a new life once again. And therefore, I can then continue to go forward in doing the purposes that God has designed me to be.
That's I love that. Um, how do you go about? Uh, I got a lot of questions going through my head right now. Um, so you come across somebody who's caught up in all the emotions of stress in their life, whatever it might be, relationship problem, financial problems, worse, the tragic loss of a child, or whatever it is. They're caught up in the emotions of the stress and life's tribulation. How do you help them, or what are some of the steps you recommend people in those situations to go to kind of get started, right? So we talk about reflect, recalibrate, and restore, but there's that moment where they've got to kind of let go of some things in order to begin doing that. Do you have any words of wisdom along those lines?
Yes, I believe what I try to do when I come across people in those kind of situations, I really try to encourage them to do their best, to step back, to take a break. And one ways I suggest sometimes they may just want to take a walk, and basically try to help that. Sometimes taking a walk can help start the process of going forward. Also, during those times, it's hard, but I also encourage them. I share with them the mantra that I shared that a little bit ago. I said, you may not believe it right now, but God is telling you right now that God loves you, God is with you, and to trust. And so I share that as well. And then also I share about that I am willing to walk with you. I know God is walking with you, and I'm willing to walk with you as well to help you, in essence, to get unstuck, to keep going forward. Because I really believe, and you can, I really believe in you. I really, I really, I want you to go forward and to discover a newness. It is possible. It is possible to go from here and get across the chasm into, we might, as they say in the Old Testament days, into the promised land. Right now you feel stuck. I tell the people right now you feel stuck and confused, full of stress and anxiety, but it is possible to cross over into a new land of relaxation, confidence, contentment, and serenity. I just encourage you to trust what I'm saying and to trust God. And together we all will help you get over to the new land. Those are some of the things I share with people.
Yeah, you said one thing there about getting outside, taking a walk, and that I think that's so important. Getting out into nature, taking just the exercise itself, but there's, and I firmly believe there's a different spiritual connection when you're out in nature that just kind of can begin to give you a new perspective. One of the other things I talk about a lot too, and highly encourage and work on with my clients, building these morning or evening rituals, as I call them, it's two essential rituals people need to develop in their life, because we all have morning and evening habits, right? We all have routines that we do, but they aren't really rituals because we haven't really thought them through or planned them out. We just kind of do them out of, this what we do to get ready for the day without thinking about them. But breath work and how easy and quick breath work can be to when we're caught up in the stress. And we see it. Like if anybody's ever seen somebody under an anxiety attack, their breathing is totally different than somebody who's calm and kind of under control. And it's like the quickest way to change our state is through our breathing.
Right.
But we kind of need to practice that. And
Yeah.
and I actually have come to the conclusion that my prayer life is richer when I've just taken a few moments beforehand, got my breathing under control, let some of that stress that might have happened during the day go. And that just kind of opens up my prayer life. It's richer. So, those are some of the things that I teach. So when you say get outside too, that was all good. And you also said something else, mantras. And I think this is one reason why Christians often talk about memorizing passages, because there's so much wisdom can be found. And I will honestly say that I think there's wisdom in all kinds of books, in spiritual books. But there's something powerful about having those right at hand. I've already quoted a couple already, like when Paul talks about rejoicing in our suffering, like what? Like rejoice in our suffering, but with the understanding that it's because of the suffering that we build perseverance and character and hope. And then it's like, oh, but when you have that available to you in a moment, and you can say that, or through I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. When you have things like that, it can really help you shift. Again, I've got a lot of different avenues, but I want to focus for a minute on when you talk about transforming a bad day into a great day, and we've just talked about some of those things, right? Some of those secret moments. So are there habits in your life that you do in the morning and evening that really help you? I talked about the importance of those. Are there things that you rely on every day just to kind of ground you before the day starts and help you reflect, recalibrate, and restore at the end of the day?
Yeah, walking is one of them. It's in my DNA to have a morning walk and an evening walk. And that's one of the things I do every single day. Like I said, morning and evening. Also, I also think for me, part of my morning ritual is having what I call quiet time with God. It's their time of devotion. It's a time of reflection. It's a time of meditation. It's a time of, I go through affirmations. I think it's 5 or 6 affirmations I repeat every morning as well to help get my mind flowing. But basically, in the morning, meditation is very important because if I start up the day with a cluttered mind, I don't get very far. But through meditation, it helps quiet my mind. And the scripture that comes to my mind is, be still and know that I am God. And realizing that helps me a great deal to keep going forward. And also, particularly my morning walk, not so much the evening walk, but my morning walk, part of that is prayer. So I'm prayer walking as well. I'm praying for the people of the houses I go by. I'm praying for everybody, other situations I know about. I do that. I pray for others before I pray for myself. But I found, and then also my prayer walk, part of it also includes singing various songs of the faith. By walking itself, grounding myself on the ground behind under my feet, and as well by praying and by singing songs of faith, that also helps lift my spirits and helps me begin have a positive attitude beginning the day. And then at the end of the day, also by walking again, probably not as long as I walk in the morning, but by walking again in the evening, and sometimes seeing the sunset, sometimes not, depending on when I walk, is another way to help bring the day to a close. As well as another activity I do at the end of the day as well, just before I fall asleep, is what I call GLAD. GLAD is, G means, what am I grateful for that during that day? L means, what did I learn during that day? A means, what did I achieve during that day? And D means, what did I delight in during that day? And then also by going through besides walking in the evening, and then also before I fall asleep, go through the GLAD exercise that helps bring me together, brings the day together. And as I have a more positive attitude and mindset as I fall asleep.
That's beautiful, and I wholeheartedly encourage people to adopt many of those. Right, the exercise component, whatever that might look like. Everybody might be something different, but that sort of movement practice, the meditation practice, the quiet reflection time, it is just so incredibly valuable. I fell back on that when my wife was sick with cancer, and it was a real short period of time from her diagnosis to her passing. But that is what got me through. I used all that as part of the whole grieving process. And, I wish I had established those sort of habits earlier in life. Can you talk briefly? It would just kind of running out of time here, but maybe how long you've kind of had those established in your life, and is there a time not too long ago, maybe even, that you could think of that if those hadn't been there, you might have fallen back into some old habits or old patterns that probably wouldn't have supported you?
Yeah. Basically, I've been those. I think I've done my evening and morning rituals. I think for years. It seems like for years now. But there's been a. Well, I have to be honest though. But there's been an ebb and flow. It hasn't been always constant. There's been ups and downs of that, and so. But overall, I really every day I really try my best to have those morning and evening rituals and to help me going. And my spiritual director asked me the same question when I've gone through different life storms. This way, how I continue to go through with it, to get through it, and continue to with a positive attitude. And I really believe it's still God is my anchor. Undeniable, God is my anchor. And through prayer, particularly through worship, through reading the Bible daily, there are the other steps I list in the book. That continues to get me through each and every day. I'll give you more of an example, two examples. Most recently, almost just over 2 years ago, 11 days after my mother died, my youngest brother died in Seattle, Washington with brain cancer. To me, that was a gut punch. Having my younger brother die with brain cancer. And one of the ways that helped me get through it was reading my own book. So I wrote the book for others, but also wrote it for myself. And that by reading the book helped me bring me back into practicing what all I've been sharing today with you. Also, last year, I walked with my wife as she was being treated for leukemia. Another gut punch, having my wife having cancer. And that also was a time for me to continue to practice, lean on my faith, help me get through that experience as well. But so basically, I made it once again. If I in those situations as well as all the other times I've talked about today, each time I come across those life storms, I made the declaration. I was going to go forward, and I was going to thrive instead of surviving, and trusting God to help me get through it. And each time I go through a life storm, I say, God, it's painful, but I'm still going to trust you. It's painful, I'm still going to worship you. It's painful, I'm still going to serve you. I don't know how, I don't know when or how, but I'm going to trust you to lead the way. You're the leader, I will follow you. And that helps me every single time to get through a life storm and go forward, is continue to be anchoring my life with God's guidance.
Yeah, that's so true. All that, and I'm so glad you mentioned the ebb and flow, because that is, it's the rhythms of life, whatever you want to call it. It's why I talk about applying heat. That's habit, emotion, attitude training. The idea is, sorry, but this is an ongoing, lifelong process. I also use the metaphor of weeding the garden, and I tell this story quite a bit. But after my wife passed, we were going to have a decent sized gathering after her service at our house. And there's a spot that she and I had always wanted to have a nice flower garden. We planted flowers there and stuff, but we never tended the garden, right? So I made it her garden. It was beautiful. I still get emotional when I think about it. Um, and that entailed a lot of work, getting all the weeds out, putting in some better soil, planting the right plants, all of those things to make it what I wanted it to be, that beautiful. But the following late spring, early summer, during that winter, I'd moved, left the house to my children, three of my children who were living there. I had a different opportunity to, for a living situation that I took advantage of. I came back for a visit and went out in the backyard, and it was a gut punch because the garden was completely overgrown with weeds. And if you don't regularly tend your garden and weed your garden, the beauty of it can be choked out with the weeds. And that's that constant training, right? It's constant work. It's the ebbs and flows. Sometimes you got get out of these habits for a little while. You've gone on vacation, or something happens, and it's hard to get out. Whatever it is, but and this is an important key that I try to get through to people is like when I get out of that as ever briefly as I do, it's become such a part of my identity now. It will not go long before I got to get back into it. I don't feel whole almost when I'm not doing those because I've made them part of who I am, and the power of that is so important. Um, any last thoughts or comments, and maybe you can leave how people can get in touch with you or your book, where they can find that. Uh, Anything you want to share along those lines?
Yes. Once again, I would encourage everybody, like I said already, to really realize each and every day God tells you, I am with you, I love you, trust me. And I believe that will help you each and every day. The book, Stay in the Game, 7 Steps Serenity, be purchased at books.by.reset-rise. And if they go to my email, earl@earlmench.com, and put in free gift, I will send them a 5-step action guide to move from chaos to serenity. So that's my free gift I'm willing to give to people to help them to start taking those small steps to go forward.
Fantastic, and we'll plan to put that also like in the description for the video too. So, well, thank you, Earl. It's been an honor, and so much great wisdom from you. Much appreciated.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Well, that wraps up another episode, and I encourage all of you to seek help when you need it, right? Sometimes, as said during the show, we get caught up in the emotion of stress, and you need somebody else to give you a different perspective and kind of help you through that. And also encourage any of you who's kind of moved by all this and understands the power and importance of training a mindset to actually establishing some of these, to cleaning up some of the weeds that are in our own life. I strongly encourage you to reach out to me at CoachChuck360.com, schedule a strategy session with me. If you just text me with your first name, last name, best email, I'll send you a special link so there's no fee, no charge. That would be a starting point, conversation where we kind of get a baseline of where you at, what are your goals, where do you want to end up and go, and what are the best ways to get there, whether it's with me or some other way. It really is irrelevant. It's just so important for you to kind of get a roadmap. And that's what that strategy session would be all about. The other thing I'm also asking for help with is if anybody knows any organization, schools, summer camp groups, even business groups who need a public speaker. I have several programs, varying lengths, where I can come and speak to groups and really talk about how important it is, especially with the next generation, to train mindsets. It really is the antidote to this incredible challenge that we're seeing with anxiety, depression, and mental health issues in our young people. So once again, CoachChuck360.com. Thank you so much for tuning in, and until the next time, live life to its fullest.